Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive, honestly generation-defining debate: human versus AI intelligence. We are constantly bombarded with hot takes on this every single day, right? But today, we're going to cut through all that noise and look at exactly what the actual data tells us. So here is the big question we need to unravel. Are artificial intelligence models genuinely creative beings, or are they just highly sophisticated mimicry engines? To figure this out, we're using grounded data from the McWilliams School of Biomedical Informatics at UT Health Houston, along with a really incredible 2025 study from the International Journal for Innovative Research in Science and Technology. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We're going to start with the intelligence showdown to separate hype from reality. Then we'll actually grade the machines, explore the creativity spectrum, and finally wrap things up by looking at the era of co-creation. So let's jump right into section 1, the intelligence showdown, where we map out the hype, the reality, and the true anatomy of intelligence. Now, if you spend any time online, you have probably stumbled across this extreme philosophical concept, PDOOM. It literally stands for the probability of existentially catastrophic outcomes in AI. Basically, the ultimate doomsday scenario. But instead of getting completely lost in science fiction and anxiety, let's ground ourselves in the data to see what these generative models can and cannot actually do in the real world. And honestly, this illustrates exactly why this whole topic feels so incredibly urgent right now. Just look at that astronomical, near-vertical adoption rate of ChatGPT. Compared to tools like DALL-E and GitHub Copilot, it reached 1 million users in just a matter of weeks. It completely dwarfed the adoption speeds of previous tech. This kind of explosive growth is exactly why we're seeing such a massive shift in how we even define creative work. But the absolute crucial point here is understanding how our brains actually differ from these models. Based on the UT Health Houston research, we've got AI cognition on one side and human cognition on the other. AI has this laser-focused attention and limitless but highly task-specific memory. It is a precision machine. However, it completely lacks our human adaptability, our rich understanding of context, and, of course, our emotional depth. These are two profoundly different kinds of intelligence. Which brings us to section 2, grading the machines. Let's see how they actually perform when we put their creativity to the test. This scorecard from the April 2025 IJIRT study is just fascinating. It systematically breaks down machine intelligence, showing us exactly where different leading architectures shine. They looked at GANs in art, VAs in music, transformers in text, and diffusion models in fashion. They measured text fluency, image quality, and actually had human experts assign a pure creativity rating on a scale from 1 to 10. Now, when we look at the text domain, transformer models, think GPT-4, score a massive 9.0 out of 10 in creativity. The study found they consistently produce fluent, highly context-aware prose, and they scored the absolute highest in originality and engagement, especially when it comes to storytelling and generating dialogue. But it's a completely different story when we move over to audio. Sure, the AI can mimic harmonic structures using variational autoencoders, or VAEs, but human experts gave them a much, much lower creativity rating of just 5.5. Why? Well, experts noted that the music just falls flat when it comes to delivering real emotional impact. It lacks nuanced dynamics and authentic emotional progression. So let's put this into a direct head-to-head competition. In a controlled study comparing product design ideas, AI actually scored an impressive 8.2 in novelty, which beat humans, who scored a 6.5. But look at usefulness and feasibility. Humans completely dominate there, scoring an 8.9 compared to the AI's 7.1. What's the real takeaway here? It means AI and humans have a deeply complementary relationship. Yes, the machine can generate a massive volume of novel design variations in the blink of an eye. But you, the human? Your contextual judgment, your practicality, and your gut feeling of what actually works in the real world, that is what actually makes those ideas useful. And that leads us perfectly into section 3, the creativity spectrum, where we move from a mindset of us versus them to true collaboration. I absolutely love this visual because it maps out the landscape so well. On one end, you have AI, super high on originality but lower on true lived creativity. On the other end, you have humans, who are incredibly high on creativity. And right there in the middle, that sweet spot is human-AI collaboration. It's literally where human intuition shakes hands with machine cognition. But this forces us to ask a really tough question. Is the AI actually being original? The researchers point out that because these models are trained on massive data sets of existing art and text, they inherently just reflect and remix what they've already seen. So while the outputs might look novel in form, they are often just statistically recombined derivatives. It's what you might call derivative creativity. So what does this actually mean for your job or your art or your daily life? It means your humanity is your ultimate asset. Human imagination is specific to your experiences, it's emotionally resonant, and it is driven by purpose. These are the crucial faculties that still completely elude the machines. AI lacks intentionality, and intentionality is the defining quality of true human creativity. All right, let's step into our fourth and final section, the co-creation era, where we look at the ethics, the real-world impacts, and where we go from here. Look, we really can't talk about all this without addressing the elephant in the room, the practical hurdles. The research brings up some very real challenges we are facing right now. There is baked-in bias in the training datasets. There's a massive legal gray area around who actually owns what when AI generates something based on human work. And, understandably, there's a lot of very real anxiety about creative job displacement. We can't just ignore that double-edged sword. But despite those very valid fears, here is a statistic that absolutely blew my mind. When researchers interviewed educators, designers, and artists, an incredible 81% of surveyed creative professionals actually support AI as a co-creator rather than viewing it as a threat or a replacement. 81%. To actually make the most of this tech and navigate this post-digital world ethically, the study points to 4 concrete steps. First, human-centered design. Second, total process transparency. Third, clear rules around authorship. And fourth, interdisciplinary collaboration. It's essentially about making sure we keep our human hands firmly on the steering wheel. Because the reality is, AI is completely blurring the lines between consumer and artist. And it's amazing that anyone can just jump in and explore self-expression now. But the research points out a massive trap here. If we rely too heavily on AI, we risk oversaturating the world with content and getting, well, intellectually lazy. The real challenge is using the tool without outsourcing our actual critical thinking to an algorithm. I think this quote from the IJIRT study really hits the nail on the head. Generative AI does not devalue human creativity, but rather is a way in which the limits of what is creatively possible can be expanded. That perfectly summarizes our journey today. AI is a complementary collaborator. It's not human versus machine, it's human and machine. I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you go about your day. In an age of endless artificial content, what makes your human experience irreplaceable? Consider your own unique, emotionally rich perspective, because that is the one thing no algorithm can ever synthesize. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep learning.